today we're going to start with a reading of one of my books here. The book is called Breatharian Beginnings. So I trust that you enjoy, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your support. Just wanted to give a shout out and appreciation to everyone who's been purchasing the book and purchasing the other books and just taking looks inside and really digesting, really absorbing, really exploring and finding out more, seeing what lies in store for them. So let's find out what lies in store for us as we take a look in this book that I published this year, So Much Love. So we start Breatharian Beginnings by Jerome. Forward. And this is written by Prophetess Nabiha. This book will give you a taste, a good taste, of the Pranic lifestyle and into Jerome's world. As I write this forward to his captivating memoir today, I am eager to share, to read his words. Well known for their poetic and descriptive quality, I can't wait to read every future book Jerome will publish. He works magic with his words, and his ability to tell stories makes him a great storyteller and motivator. I'm sure you too will enjoy his words as much as I did, so I encourage you to enjoy reading Jerome's experience. But remember that your powers are always within you. So don't just echo his words or mimic his methods. Embrace his guidance, but only if it aligns with your well-being. Reflect on everything, yet hold nothing as absolute truth. I'm confident Jerome will encourage you to attune your body and trust your intuitions too. If his approach resonates with you, keep an open mind. It's worth exploring. Jerome stands as a remarkable leader and a truth seeker, and I appreciate his unique approach to learning and his authenticity. I wholeheartedly recommend Jerome Shaw's empowering collection, Sun Gaze for Success, Finding Inner Peace, The Pranic Path and How to Grow It, and A Hunger for Freedom. Each book is a guide to unlocking your potential and embracing a path of self-discovery. I was 27 years old when I discovered the Pranic lifestyle. It was a revelation. Although I had been naturally living this way since 6th grade, this was the first time I could truly accept myself for fasting naturally for longer periods without being weighed down by people's opinions and my own conditioning. The discovery of individuals like Elitam El-Amin, who live without consuming food, was a narrative that deeply resonated with me. I had long considered eating to be a learned behavior, a habit I hadn't quite mastered yet, and often perceived as a burden throughout my life. Realizing that there are others like me out there reassured me that I needn't feel peculiar about seeking nourishment in nature's ways, which is different from what the majority defines as food or nourishment. Then, during an Instagram Live, I had the pleasure of meeting Jerome Shaw. I couldn't help but notice how he embodied the Pranic lifestyle. Jerome is an incredibly loving and goal-oriented person who knows what he wants in life, making him one of the most disciplined men I know. He became the first person I dared to go live with on Instagram. I remember that, Nabiha, I remember that. He encouraged me to express myself freely in the digital realm. You see, I've always considered myself somewhat shy, but in the presence of Jerome, that transformed. Jerome didn't just encourage me to hit the live button. He became a beacon of support, urging me to embrace vulnerability and speak my truth. His wisdom reassured me that those nervous thoughts were mine alone. Through his encouragement, I found a reservoir of confidence that I never knew existed. But our connection extends beyond the confines of social media. In this new age, where the art of letter writing is fading, Jerome and I have embraced the old tradition of exchanging letters. It's all about remembering. Each missive he sends carries a sense of nostalgia, a reminder of a time when communication was a tangible, cherished thing. In a world where quick messages often replace heartfelt sentiments, our exchange of letters has become a precious ritual near my heart. As I reflect on our connection, I realize that Jerome was more than a friend. He was a light in my darkest moments. Oh. In this digital age, where connections are often fleeting, finding a friend like Jerome is a treasure. I believe we all encounter individuals who, knowingly or not, shape our narratives. For me, Jerome is that friend, that guiding light, reminding me that sometimes, even in the vastness of the internet, friends are there to illuminate our paths. Yes, indeed. I vividly recall an early morning in California as I watched the sunrise, which prompted thoughts of Jerome. I began typing a message to him while gazing at the rising sun. I wrote, "Thank you for being you." I remember that. "You are like the sun, waking up every day to share your light with everyone." Jerome consistently gives and encourages people through many ways, such as consistent Qigong practices and incredible daily stories and his poetic ways. His beautiful way of storytelling captures any mind and heart. Every day, Jerome rises like the sun, with the intention of being love and spreading peace. Not many people are dedicated to the Pranic lifestyle, and even those trying their best, the road can be rocky. However, Jerome seems to walk this path with confidence, offering hope to others, and I love that about him. His steadfast commitment to this path and embodying love and peace is truly inspiring. Prophetess Nabiha. So thank you so much, Nabiha, for writing that. Much, much, much love. I find it tough at times to take compliments. It's not always easy to do that, but I'm learning how to receive. Introduction. Starting this spiritual journey years ago was one of the best things I ever did. Yet I had no idea what it meant at the time. I didn't know that it would lead to profound realizations and such interesting conversations, walks and talks with light beings and like-minded individuals. People who came from all walks of life and had suffered as I had suffered. My journey started from a place of pain, yet it would lead to a place of deep inner peace. This place would be the foundation to carry me through. And so I walked and walked to see what else I could do. People would give me many different reactions, noticing my naked feet on the street. Some people with looks of disgust or curiosity, while others were impressed. One person told me that this is what we were made for, realizing that we never evolved to wear shoes. But they admitted that they felt their feet were too weak to try. Sometimes you must be willing to be weak before you can find your strength again. The unwillingness to go through weakness can keep us weak for many years. I know because I did for decades. The forest. I recall being in a forest. The day was January 16th, 2020. I was walking, as I tended to walk long distances during this time. But this time, I was walking off the beaten path and enjoying a leisurely stroll through nature. But what was interesting is that it wasn't just a leisurely stroll. It turned out to be a revelation, a euphoric experience, and a heavenly encounter with all that is. What I didn't know then, and what I later would come to find out, was that this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey. I was on the 5th day of a dry fast, meaning I had not consumed any water or solid food for 5 days. I promised myself on the 2nd or 3rd day that if I continued to feel good, I would allow myself to continue as if my body was giving me permission that it was ready to move on. That the cells in my body had gotten the new memo and that they were ready to receive nourishment from newer sources. To receive sustenance from Source itself. To receive ionic nutrition from the sun, the cosmic rays, and all of nature. I never knew that being in nature could feel so good. I had taken walks in nature before. I had climbed trees in nature before. I had spent time in the woods with birds and bees and animals, but never like this. Never without food and water. For 5 days, my body was making a switch. There was a kind of paradigm shift that was happening to where I was able to feel energy and to where I was able to perceive with all my senses the flowing dance of life all around me. Nature has a rhythm, and when we synchronize and harmonize with this rhythm, we feel the beat, we feel the flow, we hear the music. Music is always being played in all of life, all around us. But if we don't have ears to hear, if our heart has not been attuned, if our spirit is not open, if our mind is not free, we simply don't experience things on the same level as we could. If we were not clogged up, we would have more clarity to hear the music, to join the dance, and to melt into oneness. To feel on a visceral level the abundance. Nature is and always has been abundant. If we are nature, then we too are abundant. To not realize your inherent abundance is to not realize your own nature. To not realize your connection is to not feel the reflection. Sometimes one must go through a resurrection to feel the connection, like a serpent or a snake shedding its skin. We must get rid of the current shell we are in. We must find a new beginning, becoming baptized in the waters of life itself, becoming born again, becoming refined in the fire of trial and tribulation, becoming a brand new vibration. I didn't know it at the time, but I started to realize that my body was responding and becoming more aware with sensations to the things that were already there. The sun and the sky were already there. The trees giving oxygen were already there. The birds that were chirping were already there. The grass beneath my feet was already there. The smells of the pine and the flowers and the sage bushes were already there. But before my body was empty, before my vessel became more free, before my mind was clear, before my heart was open, I couldn't feel, or rather truly feel, the light of the sun. I couldn't fully absorb and ground in the grass. I couldn't really hear the chirps of the birds. I didn't laugh at the playful little squirrels. I didn't smell the bushes of sage. It was for me the coming of a new age. It was, for me, the turning of the page. And I decided, right there in that forest, I never wanted to go back, because I now knew with certainty that there was no lack. First fast. I had tried my hand at fasting before. There was a time in California years ago that I had decided to go 7 days without eating, and it was the first time that I had ever made the attempt. But I remember that up until that point, I had felt unfulfilled and unsatisfied with my life. The level of dissatisfaction was at an all-time high. I had already ventured deep into virtual reality, and the devil, so to speak, was constantly on my shoulder when it came to indulgences, such as pornography, distraction, self-gratification, and not taking action. I identified with being a chronic procrastinator who only found the epic win on a video game screen, who was only accustomed to customizing my avatar, to leveling up my stats and acquiring new skills in an environment that did nothing to empower me in the real world. I was literally trapped in a matrix within the matrix, living a dream within the dream. And I craved, I yearned for something new, something different, something fresh, something exciting, something invigorating. Fasting turned out to be the answer, but I didn't know I'd just be scratching the surface. I started fasting for the first time while I was driving for DoorDash in California. I remember that. Delivering pizzas, Chinese takeout, and fast food to multiple houses. Yes, multiple. Hundreds. Having to smell Wingstop, Popeyes, McDonald's, and all kinds of things in my car while being without food for days. It was challenging, to say the least, but I was up for the challenge because I thought to myself, why the hell not? I had turned into a why not person. In my old neighborhood, they called it being a why not guy. Yeah, we used to say that all the time. Me, Sir Walt, and my brother Joe, be like, you a why guy or a why not guy? I'm a why not guy. When the rest of the world asks why, you simply ask, why not? When someone asks, why go without food for 7 days? You simply ask, why not? It seemed more exciting to live a why not life than to always ask why all the time. Yet ironically, a healthy dose of skepticism is what led me to my own salvation. Elitam Elamine would later even encourage us to be skeptic, letting us know that we should not believe all that we see and hear, but to do our own research, test, and find out for ourselves, becoming the scientist in your own laboratory. So this is what I did. I experimented on myself, and the first trial seemed mildly successful. Though after the 7 days, I felt incredibly weak and practically ran to the first restaurant I could think of. Most likely Thai food, yeah. Which was my taste at the time. Used to eat oodles and noodles, pad Thai, and I used to put all the sauces on pad Thai. But I had planted a seed deep inside of my mind. A seed that would later be watered and sprout, and would one day soon have to make its way out. Being around the monks and nuns I met from Myanmar changed my life forever. It changed the whole trajectory of my life. If I had never met them, I would not have learned so many things, and the likelihood of me stumbling upon the pranic path would be extremely slim. Yeah. I met them while living in Pasadena, and they invited me into their meditation center. They allowed me to stay at their monastery. They opened their world, their ways, their refrigerator. They taught me some of their language. Yeah, like Mingala Mingla ba, and Mingla na neke ma, gondo nyao ba. I still remember some of the language from being there. Like Mingla ba is hello, Mingla na neke ma is good morning, gondo nyao ba, see you later. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I learned from the monks. They taught me some of their language. They never demanded I do anything. It was all based on good deeds of one's own accord. I would soon volunteer to help them with anything that they needed. Their generosity melted my heart. They spoke to my spirit and opened my mind. They explained all of the reasons that we suffer in life, how we could reduce that suffering or eliminate that suffering entirely. They showed me what it meant to be free from desire. They showed me simple steps to vibrate even higher. They taught me about meditation, and I witnessed them in states of relaxation. While they walked, while they talked, while they conducted themselves, they were always so present, so attentive, so open and available for other people. Even when I helped them go and do alms round, where they would walk in a line barefoot on streets and marketplaces, they collected donations in little bowls in their hands as they walked, and would ship the big donations that they received back to their people in Burma. I had never witnessed people like this. And one day, when I was having an idle conversation with a previous nun, she mentioned to me that there were people who don't eat. I don't remember how we got to that topic. It was during a time that I was practicing fasting, and I was lightening up my diet, lightening up my caloric intake, finding different ways of nutrition, and looking for a change in life. I was inspired by their custom to not eat after noon. But this particular revelation made me pause. She told me, Jerome, don't you know that there are people that don't eat? They call them Breatharians. I was confused. Breatharians? Who are these people? I had never heard of the word in all my 28 years of life on earth. Yet something within me was ready to accept the idea. The idea that there were people that lived completely different lives from society. The idea that I didn't have to simply conform to the socialized norm. The idea that I could be transformed into a different person, and that I could deprogram and reprogram my mind. Something within me was ready to redefine these concepts and expand my consciousness. I started doing my own research, consulting the computer in my pocket. We all have one these days. I immediately began searching up YouTube this keyword, Breatharian. It led me down a rabbit hole like Neo in the Matrix, searching for clues, searching for answers, searching, till finally I found Pranic people like Ray Mayor, people like Elitam Elami, and people like Jazz Muheen. I realized that the rabbit hole went far deeper than I could have ever imagined. I made my decision after watching many of Elitam's videos and witnessing other Pranic people documenting their journey. To this day, I am so thankful for those who paved the way by putting themselves out there for the world to see, especially Rocky Chari as well. Rocky Chari, the Breatharian yogini, check her out on YouTube. She definitely helped me out. Facing judgment and ridicule to spread the truth of their findings, I decided that I would do 1 month without solid food. Just a month. It didn't seem like that long, since I had already read and already seen in Ray Mayor's book, A Year Without Food. I said to myself, What is 1 month? How bad could it be? I told one of the young monks my plans and revealed to him my wish to accomplish 1 month without food. The monk teasingly and jokingly replied that 1 month was too long to go without food. I proudly took this on as a worthy challenge and said, game on. My personality type is one that if you tell me I cannot do something, I'm going to make sure that thing is done. So in my mind, when he told me that I would be unable to complete the task, it lit a fire within me. I had resolved to see this through to the end, but little did I know it would just be the beginning. 1 month without food. Certain times in your life, you don't realize things and connect different dots until much later on. You come to see how things you thought were inadequate or weren't up to par were the most perfect. You come to understand how divine and orchestrated the universe is for your progress and development in your path. This was the case as well for me when I embarked on 1 month without food. Once I had made the decision and once I was committed, I burned the boats behind me. I beached myself on the island of no return, and the universe conspired to assist me in my aim for ascension. Very interesting circumstances and events started to take place, as though this was the wish of my higher self, as though I was finally operating in divine order. The monks asked me one day if I wished to go and stay at one of their properties in Lake Elsinore. This was a property I'd never heard about. I had never been to Lake Elsinore, but I casually said that I wouldn't mind going. I had already been enjoying myself in the community. At the meditation center, everyone was always coming and going. They would take in anyone off the street there, whether they had been drug addicts, homeless, or people who were down on their luck in life, or people who wanted to come and learn about meditation. They would give them a place to sleep, and they would give them food to eat. They would shelter them and shield them from the outside world. So when they told me about this property, I was curious, but not eager. The day that we started driving there, I realized how vast their network of generosity went. These calm monks who went around collecting donations had more wealth than most of my family. They had received acres and acres of land for their actions and their deeds. This property in Lake Elsinore was one of those donations. We drove the winding road up the mansion, or up to the mansion on the side of the mountain, a house on the hill in California, a dream for a southern boy like me from South Carolina, who never ever thought I would be like the rich and famous. They told me that I could live in this mansion. I didn't have the words to describe the feelings that I was going through at that time. I could not fully express my gratitude at that moment. There were only 2 other people that lived on the property. There was a Cambodian monk who lived in a trailer outside, and there was another man named Ye from Myanmar who lived outside as well. We used to play a few video games together. I remember we were playing these ninja games on PS4. Meanwhile, I had the whole house to myself. And it was the perfect place at the time for me to meditate, be in silence, and find solitude. To develop myself and reconstruct myself into the person that I desired to be. I had no job, no children, no responsibilities, but my own well-being. I would watch Breatharian content. I would listen to Pranic people online. It was the best time for me to break away from the neural networks and the mental patterns that had been deeply rooted and established since childhood. I exercised, I fasted, I sun-gazed at the sun every rising. They would drive me down the hill once a day to grab juice and come back up. During this time, I was taking less than 500 calories a day. Slowly but surely, my body started to change. They say that in life, the ball has to hit the ground before it bounces. So certain things in my body felt like they had gotten worse before they got better. It was like I had to go through a level of detox and descension before the ascension process. Before I started feeling more energy, before I felt more alive, before I felt like I was thriving, before I felt like I had so much vitality within my body, I had to let go of a lot of blockages. It was like letting go of the gunk that had been clogging my guts. It feels like you don't receive so much guidance when your gut intuition is blocked. So within my body, there was a lot to release. I had no idea the amount of dis-ease I needed to let go of. I'm originally from the South. I come from macaroni and cheese, hot dogs, rotisserie chickens, and all sorts of junk. Tons of congestion, inflammation, and lack of information. KFC, McDonald's, Popeyes, and several other fast food chains were places I frequently went to, and I frequented weekly. As you know, what you do eat frequently becomes your frequency. I was continually blocking myself up without any sign of slowing down. The strangest thing was that I thought that it was normal. The way that I existed every day was my normal. Eating spicy foods that would make a grown man cry was my normal. And I'm not even making that up. See, my coworker when I was a zipline tour guide back in Wimberley Zipline Adventures in Wimberley here in Texas, I seen my coworker. He took a dab of one of the hot wings I was eating. That was like something like a ghost pepper mixed with habanero and jalapeno flakes. Like that was normal for me. Like those were challenge wings, but that was my normal. And he took a dab of it and put it on his tongue, and a tear came down his eye. I never forgot. I always remembered just watching that. I was like, wow. My life was a constant Pepto-Bismol commercial. You know, the upset stomach, diarrhea, indigestion, constipation, that was all normal for me. I didn't know that there was a way of living where my body didn't have to deal with those things. I had accepted it as a way of life, resigned to the attitude of that's just the way it is, like so many others in my family. So of course, it was a shock when things started changing drastically. As I detoxed more and more, my body started to flow more efficiently and effectively. It blew my mind. I never knew I could feel that good, not even in my imagination. I started to have less brain fog, more energy, more clarity, more focus, and drive. Not only did I know what I needed to do, but I now had the energy to do it. Energy in abundance. Sometimes it was so much energy, it was uncomfortable. All without any caffeine or stimulants. There had always been a disconnect in my life. It was like there were things that I wanted to do, I wished I could do, I felt I could do, but my reach always exceeded my grasp. Things like writing this book, for example. I could never quite muster up the courage or break the loop of procrastination. My dreams, my goals and ambitions were always kind of ephemeral. They were off in the distance. Like, oh, those people can do that, but not me. But when I started letting go, shedding layers, everything started coming in. Blessings started coming in. More love started coming in. The breath of life started coming in. I was flooded with emotions that had been suppressed for so long. I felt so good that I honestly was afraid to go back to eating. I remember this. I was afraid to go back to solid food after fasting for so long, since the way that I felt before just felt wrong. I started asking myself, what else don't I know? It became a nagging question. After the second week of no food, solid matter was still coming out of my body. It was eye-opening, to say the least. Nothing solid was going in, but solid things were still coming out. That showed me how much capacity we have for storage. We don't often think about how long the small intestine and the large intestine actually are, about the colon and its capabilities. We grossly underestimate our capacity to hold on to these things. But let me tell you, seeing is believing. As I was letting all of this stuff go and feeling more vibrant, I started sleeping a lot less. I started sleeping maybe 2 to 3 hours a day and feeling fully rested, fully recharged. My body was ready to go, like a cell phone was at 100%. It was unprecedented. I remember waking up and the sun had not come up yet. I would be questioning myself curiously, telling myself, there's no way. Why am I energized? Why am I awake right now? I'm not supposed to be awake. This is weird. Everyone else was sleeping and I was awake. And my body was telling me, we're ready to go. But this only happened when I started fasting. So after that point, when I got to a month, I was feeling so good that I didn't want to stop. I extended it to 3 months before I had any solids again. Yet still, just like before, we were only getting started. And there's a question, were you on Orin or just juices? So at that time, I was not practicing Shivambu at that time. That was later on. That was the next year after I did my first retreat. Here's a quote by Nicole Abamikaze. When I started, I was 71 kilograms, and by the end, I was 54 kilograms. Like I had lost a total of 17 kgs, but my skin was super clear, and oh my God, my taste buds. Because after that, the first week following the whole month of fasting, I was eating watermelons and sugar canes and a bit of apples. But it was as if I had never tasted those fruits before. The taste was beyond. It's as if I could taste every single thing, like composed of those fruits. So it was a really good experience, and you know, it was kind of challenging the first week, but it was really a good experience, and yeah, I think I can do it again. That's a quote by Nicole Abamikaze. The next chapter, Retreat Realizations. As time went on, manifestations started to pop up for me. Things I could have never predicted. First, I had been watching videos with Elitam Elamin on YouTube. Next thing I knew, in December of that year, I was meeting him face to face. I first met him in Sherman Oaks, California, while he was hosting a seminar with Athena Starseed. They were speaking on pranic living and Breatharianism at a place called the Sound Palace Temple. After visiting and experiencing his vibration for myself, I knew this life was for real, and I felt a deep calling that this was for me. I decided to use my credit card beep, to pay for the retreat, and I did not have the money at that time. I surely did not have it, but yeah, I charged it. I said, charge it to the game. Charge that to the game. We might not have this. We might not have this again. And sure enough, after that retreat, he went off. I think he went off to India after that retreat. So
Yeah, literally, if I had not done it at that time, I wouldn't have seen him. He would have been gone for like over a year. I paid for the retreat with my credit card with Elitom that very month to stay with him and 8 other participants at this temple. The lady who owned the temple, Athena, was very exuberant and lively. For 9 whole days, we communed together. We established rituals and regimens for our pranic retreat. Every day we meditated, we did qigong, and we worked with the energy. We would exercise and walk around the town. Then we would come back and have a Breatharian talk or a satsang. We'd usually finish the evening with another meditation before retiring to our room full of sleeping bags. Yeah, I remember. We were all huddled together in one little room, just like a little sandwiched in. I was one of the few individuals in the group who was going dry completely this entire time. Many of the others were just on liquids, but I wanted to really push and challenge myself. Before coming to the retreat, while living with the monks and nuns from Myanmar, I had been letting go more and more, reducing my intake of liquids slowly and gradually. I'd gotten the hang of the rhythm with my body and was learning to trust it completely. My body assured me that I would be okay if I went a day dry. Then it told me I'd be okay going 2 days dry. By the time I arrived at the retreat, I had already been 5 days dry. If you can imagine living with someone like Elitom, who's not eating, not drinking, not using the restroom, not lacking any energy, it can be quite challenging for the egoic mind. It was like there was a constant battery inside of him. Being around spiritual beings like that can start to change your brain and rewire different neural pathways. It can also be like an energetic upgrade for your field of awareness. As the energy started to build within me and the consumption totally left, my body started to do a transition. Towards the end of the retreat, I had gone 2 weeks without food and water. The air felt like food. It was as though I was a fish waking up for the first time in my life, realizing I was swimming in water. I could feel the moisture in the air all around me. This sensation blew my mind. My body was pulling in nourishment, pulling in resources from the energy and from the prana all around me. I subconsciously realized that this natural process was occurring because certain elements and organs inside me had awakened, where others had perhaps gone into a more dormant state. Reading the book by Hilton Hotima, Man's Higher Consciousness, I made the connection with what was happening for me. It was as though what had been my primary form of digestion had moved to the side and made room for my lungs, which were now the primary form. He used to say it was like going from an earth animal to an air animal. That's what he used to tell us. There was also another crazy phenomenon that happened for me. My olfactory senses opened up and I felt like a dog, like an animal. I could smell anything and everything within a large radius. I've since read in the book Becoming Breatharian that Akai Ricardo went through this sensation as well. I felt like an animal just walking around smelling things. At the time, I was in downtown Los Angeles, near a place called the Grand Central Market. To the Grand Central Market in downtown Los Angeles, you know what I'm talking about. Like tons and tons of food vendors and food stalls, like in rows and rows and rows of food from like everywhere around the world. At this market, they have rows and rows of food vendors from all different cultures around the world. You walk down one row of the market and see Chinese, Thai, Japanese, Mexican, Italian food, all in the same place. I remember I was just walking up and down the aisles, smelling everything. It was one of the most bizarre, yet euphoric experiences. I seriously felt like I was high. It was like I was losing my mind and coming back to my senses. I was eating through my nostrils. You could call it a nosegasm. The orgasmic sensation of aromatherapy. After I left the marketplace, I was content for the day. Like I had just had lunch, even though I didn't eat anything. Nothing had entered my stomach, but I was full. I didn't have to buy anything. I didn't have to eat anything, drink anything, or do anything. I was so satisfied that I asked myself, how did I never feel this in 28 years of my life? This experience taught me that our satisfaction could be one breath away. Our peace could be a breath away. Bliss could be a breath away. Your fulfillment could just be one breath away. It is literally right under your nose the whole time. Doing Qigong and working with the energy felt like the forming of a whole new relationship with a long-lost lover. A subtle form of source energy that I somehow had been divorced from. As you can imagine, I got very excited about this way of pranic living. Realizing this was possible for me, the way my mind works, I thought, well, anybody can do this. And I started to tell people about it. But I quickly learned that not everyone was ready to receive this information. It was a rude awakening that would soon lead me down a dangerous downward spiral. So at the end of this chapter, we have a quote by one of my friends, Megan Gerbert. She says, once you realize that you know prana is what is sustaining us and not the food we eat or anything else, once you learn that, then you have to start peeling back all the other layers of mistruth or lies, basically, that you have accepted over the years, that you know we were born into. Like, we were born into this dark room, and it's just this process of uncovering the truths slowly but surely. And I think when you start meditating and start breath work, it's like an initiation on that path, and the energy leads you to where you need to go. Like what you're ready for. It shows you. And as long as you're doing the practice, then those truths become accessible to you. Megan Gerber. Next chapter, Rude Awakening. There came a certain point during this time when my family caught wind of me speaking about my experiences, talking about the euphorias of not eating and drinking. My cup of love had been filled to the brim, and it started to run over. I simply could not explain the excitement I had for this kind of expansion. It was mind-altering and reality-shifting on all levels. I desperately needed to express what was on my mind. One of my aunts saw a video I had made on Facebook at the time. I've since deleted my Facebook profile. You can't find it anymore. And she mentioned it to my parents, letting them know that their son had gone crazy. It wasn't long after that they had an intervention. It is because of what took place that I am now super careful about who I speak to about this lifestyle. I don't talk about pranic living around people who haven't asked me questions. Most people wouldn't even believe me if I told them, regardless of the fact they haven't seen me eat. I don't talk about this to people who aren't wanting or willing to learn. I'm only looking for people who are already looking. This has allowed for a lot less headaches and some much needed anonymity. I was walking outside in downtown Los Angeles one day when I got the phone call. During this time, I was walking around 10 miles a day with the same routines, reading, exercise, meditation, and living off the prana all around me. The call came in. Hello? And when I answered it, I heard my mother and father on the line. They usually never call me on a three-way conversation. This was the first red flag. Soon, the wave of negative energy came in as they broke down all the judgments that they had about me. Son, you're harming yourself. Son, what are you doing? Jerome, please eat something. Jerome, your body looks like it's eating itself. Jerome, you're too thin. Jerome, you're too frail. You're too skinny. You're too this. You're too that. Please eat something. We'll send you money. We'll do anything. Please eat something. The paradox was that even though I was living on less, I was feeling the best I had ever felt in my life. It was a very conflicting and a very contradicting thing to hear from my parents. The concern, the worry, the stress, the tears. My mother actually cried on the phone, and that rarely happens. I wasn't ready for that energy. I wasn't ready for the wave of judgment. The worst part was that it was all out of love. It was their love for me that brought about the concern and care. They just didn't understand what I was doing, and they didn't want me to hurt myself. That conversation dug its claws into me. Even though we agreed to disagree with each other, the seed had been planted. Bloop! I started to feel doubts and concerns of my own. The day I started eating again, I was living with others in a studio apartment, still in the heart of downtown Los Angeles. This was a yoga studio with bunk beds and about 7 other roommates that had come together. Coming from the retreat with Elitam, I had been mostly dry for so long that it was becoming my way of being. I had since stopped counting the days. Qigong was my breakfast, my lunch, my dinner. Some nights, I felt like I was like a vampire in that apartment. I would be up all night while everybody else was sleeping. I was devouring books and pacing back and forth in the middle of the room with energy. My felt vitality was through the roof, and when I did sleep, it was only for a couple hours. Afterwards, my body was plugged up, charged, and ready to go. Here we go! I would go on top of the building, I remember this, and I would sun gaze every rising. During this time was also when I had my first Kundalini awakening. But that's a story for another day. Most of my roommates were always cooking something, constantly whipping up dishes in the kitchen. This did not really bother me since I was very content with my state of being. Wow, this is going down memory lane. However, I was admittedly still very young to this vibration of not eating. Instead of getting there gradually and slowly over the course of years, I had slingshotted myself into this state over a matter of weeks. My body and mind were still adjusting, and I was still deep in uncharted territory. Suffice it to say that I hadn't gained the confidence I now have today. And for this reason, I encourage people to not do what I did. Don't rush into something that you really want to last. Just go slow. Don't go too fast. I remember this girl at our apartment. One day, she made everyone some kettle corn. She was offering it to everybody inside the studio. When she asked me if I had wanted some, I said, "It's okay, I'm good." She said, "Oh, you always say you're good. Boy, you can have it if you want." "It's okay. I just made it." I said, "It's fine." I just wanted to be polite. Finally, she conceded, saying, "Okay, well, if you want it, it's going to be right here for you. All right? Like, I'm going to leave this cup right here, and if you want it, it'll be right here." I said, "Okay." And she walked away. I went back to reading my book or something, but the idea slowly came to me. I started to wonder what it would taste like. It had been so long since I'd had anything solid. Curiosity was eating at me. I can remember having a stare down with the kettle corn. Unfortunately, I blinked first and lost the challenge. In the next moment, I was chewing the kettle corn, bits and pieces of it moving around my teeth and gums. It sort of tasted like cardboard at first. The sensations working my jaw, crunching something, returning back to my memory. Then the flavors started to hit me. It wasn't long after putting it in my body that I went crazy. I went crazy for the next 3 months. I was in a full-blown binge cycle. This was the closest I'd ever been to what I would call an actual eating disorder. Never ever in my life had I ever felt like I had an eating disorder until that period. I was eating everything I could get my hands on. It felt like I was a crazed lunatic. I was digging in peanut butter jars straight from the gas station, scooping it out with my fingers until there was nothing left. I would hop to the next convenience store and get almonds. Then I would go hit a gas station and buy chips. Then I would go hit a grocery store and get pastries. Then I would go to a food stand and get tacos. I would feel terrible bloating in my gut and make myself purge, putting my finger down my throat to induce vomiting. Then I would wipe myself off and do it all over again. Since I was in downtown Los Angeles, everything was right there. A human obstacle course of constant consumption. Everything I could ever want was right there in the same vicinity. My wallet got lighter and lighter and lighter as I spent all of my savings on food. I spent money I didn't even have, charging it all to different credit cards, building my consumer debt to see it all go into the garbage, literally. I now know what people mean when they talk about flushing money down the toilet. It amazes me that I got to witness the transfer of energy. The more that I binged and purged, the more pathetic I felt, and the sadder I got. I could barely look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgusted. Finding my way out of this hole of self-loathing was one of the hardest things that I have ever done. But it has also given me the utmost compassion and empathy for people struggling through addictions. It felt like I was literally clawing my way out of a graveyard that I had dug with my teeth. There was only one thing that got me out completely. You want to know what it was? It might sound cheesy. It was love. I know how it sounds, but in all seriousness, if it wasn't for self-love, I would never have surrendered. I would have kept on digging till I was 6 feet under. Self-love was the only thing that got me out of that abyss of guilt and shame. I literally had to look at myself in the mirror. I had to acknowledge the hurt, the pain, and the blame. I had to say, Jerome, this is not you. You're better than this. You're more than this. This is not who you are. I had to tell myself, I love you, and truly mean it. I had to see myself with tears coming down my eyes, with food dribbling down my cheeks, with my stomach bloated. They say the first step in Alcoholics Anonymous is to admit you have a problem. The first step can be the hardest to accept for many. To say to yourself, I have to face this. I have to embrace this. I cannot erase this. I would speak words of affirmation and speak life into myself. I spoke to myself like a person that I loved. I spoke to myself like a child. I hugged myself. I apologized to my body. Before this, I had never even had that kind of relationship with my own body. I didn't even know that I could. It felt so strange, yet so familiar all at once. I was asking my body for forgiveness, saying I'm sorry and please forgive me. If anyone knows about the Ho'oponopono meditation, the Hawaiian meditation, it's called Ho'oponopono. That's where I got that from. I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you, and I love you. Very, very healing to tell that to yourself. I'm sure this all sounds very weird, but I felt like my body responded. I felt like it heard me. And it was like, it's okay. I felt like my body forgave me for not putting it first, for not putting my peace above the pleasure of instant gratification. In its own way, my body let me know that all was well. After that point, we started working like a team again. It felt like we were back in tandem. Slowly, my mind and my body came into a harmonious state. I was able to let go of food again, bit by bit and piece by piece, to finally arrive at what some might call food freedom. And this chapter ends with a quote by Blaise Woodson. He says, "Your mind has to be right in order to live this lifestyle. For a person to survive with no food and no water, and they receive, and they survive from the energy, from the earth. And that earth energy keeps growing stronger and stronger, and it doesn't stop. That's very powerful. You have to heal from everything that you've been in your life, trauma, everything." Thank you. A lot of people aren't willing to do that. They will not do that. It's not possible for some people because some of our elders have lived longer than us. So they're in a different way of thinking. That's what you're going to have to know. Like your mom or your parents and everyone. They're in a different way of thinking. To them, this seems crazy. This seems pure crazy. Why would a person want to not eat food? This seems crazy. And you guys are going to have to understand that if you're going on this path, it does look crazy at first. But when you finally start living it, you figure out that you're actually living. Blaise Woodson. So we'll go ahead and we'll start right there. We'll take a stop right there. This has been reading from my book. People have been asking me to, they said, "Jerome, why don't you read your own book? Read your own book. We want to hear your book." So we've been reading from my book today. It's called Breatharian Beginnings. It's available for you. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for glistening. I trust you received a message or just something to take with you. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep the grateful, thankful spirit. And I trust that the rest of your life and the breath of your life becomes the best of your life, my friend. For all things pranic living, you can definitely check out our website that we have for you. The website is called patreon.com/pranicpath. And it has tons of audios, tons of videos, tons of books continuing to grow for your reading pleasure, your listening pleasure, your viewing pleasure. And once again, that website for you is called patreon.com/pranicpath. So thank you so much for listening. Much love to you. I trust you have an amazing rest of your day. I'm sending so much love your way. And we'll continue next time on the Pranic Pages.